Let me try again. Happy Tuesday. Yes, it's working. My goodness, sometimes the app is so buggy. I hope Elon is fixing this. Good time to say that. Well, happy Tuesday. Welcome to our Cake DeFi Twitter space that we're doing on a weekly basis. If you're joining us for the very first time, again, it's normally always 6:30 here in Singapore PM, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard, and 12:30 in Europe, in Central Europe. It's always myself, CEO and co-founder of Cake DeFi, and always head of community, Fabio. We talk about company things, new products, new ideas, vision, updates, and so on. And then we always talk market. We talk all kinds of topics. Obviously, today we would love to kind of talk about three things really quick. Tomorrow we're going to go into a scheduled kind of short downtime on Cake. If everything goes well, we would love to launch something new tomorrow. So let's see. Scheduled downtime tomorrow. We're going to talk about this. Obviously, we want to talk about Elon Musk buying Twitter. What is this going to mean for crypto? What is this going to mean for Bitcoin? What does this mean for Doge? Doge pumped quite significantly today after that news. And obviously, I want to talk about the current markets. People tend to become more and more bearish at the moment. I think if you go on Twitter and you look at various polls, people kind of talking a bit about a bear market. So I want to put some perspective to that. We saw a dump, then again a pump. I've seen this kind of going on several times. A lot of people now talk about chart patterns that in the past, whenever they appeared, I think it's the 50 and the 20, once they turn both negative, generally we see a 50% dip. My thoughts on chart patterns, I call this like astrology for crypto. And but let's discuss this. These are the three main topics. If you have questions, simply tweet either at myself, that's at Julian Hosp, or you can tweet at Andreata Fabio, which is Fabio, or you can tweet at the company account at Cake DeFi. Fabio, any of the topics that I was missing other than those three? Any other things in the kind of rough overview?
Hey, everybody. I guess you brought up the most important talking points. I guess my Twitter feed today is more of an Elon Musk feed. Every single tweet on my timeline is regarding Elon Musk buying Twitter and the implications, or if they like it or if they don't like it. It seems to be that conversation on Twitter right now, and it's kind of logical as well. I guess this is a little bit of the biggest thing in social media ever, or at least in the last years. I don't know what else we should talk about.
Cool. Agree. Then let's first and foremost talk Cake stuff. I think we've gotten our performance things really well under control. Despite the massive growth, I think rewards are being paid on time. KYC is running super smoothly. I think uptime is, 100%. We have the status page where people can track everything now. I think for the past 2 weeks, we haven't had a single kind of issue, at least that I, as the CEO, was made aware of. I know most platforms, maybe they're not like, oh yeah, 2 weeks uptime. Let's celebrate. But we've grown insanely a lot this year. And so, it's been an insane strain on the system. I mentioned this a couple of times. And so for us, before we launched anything new, we wanted to really make sure we're stable. There's two things. Obviously, first and foremost, we get a lot of questions on that. When is the dashboards with all the graphs and all the statistics coming back? So now we are confident that, server load wise, we can bring those back. So you should see this in the next couple of days. If everything goes smooth, to be back again. We've been testing this on staging enough now, so that's good. And tomorrow, 1 p.m. Singapore time, so that's 7 a.m. Europe time, we are going to go into a scheduled downtime. Fingers crossed, we have some exciting stuff to announce afterwards. Again, if anything in the meantime needs to be changed, then we may not do that, but fingers crossed everything goes smoothly tomorrow. Yeah, that's at least what I know from my side. Anything on the community side, Fabio, that we need to add, or any of the other features or any other things?
Maybe let me just briefly touch on one thing. I also said that during today's internal team meeting, it's super difficult to spot things when they are working well. And like a few weeks back, you mentioned there was some irregularity with reward payments. So sometimes it was a little bit more than 12 hours in between them. And there was some issues with the website performance and stability because we were a little bit overwhelmed by new joiners and signups and growth. But right now, everything is working. So the rewards come as expected. The website works, and sometimes you really forget the problems when everything is working as it should be. And I'm super happy, and we know that this should be like that all the time. But I'm amazed by our tech guys and the team in general in how fast they could resolve those issues. So it was only about a few weeks that we were affected by the issue, and then there was a solution proposed. So we implemented a status page. There was a team dedicated to resolving these issues. It was given priority, and everything from there moved really fast. And I'm really happy about performance and stability. And I guess our moderators in chat as well. So we a lot of team members. We monitor the chats on a daily basis, and right now the volumes are down 80%. And if the chats are quiet, it's mostly a very good sign, because then nobody seems to have any issue or complaining, and everybody seems to be happy. So that makes me happy as well.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions around Cake as a platform, but I don't see any that I would love to address at the moment. If there's anything, we can bring it up a bit later. I'll scroll a bit at the meantime. Let's move on to the second topic. I think the main topic right now, obviously, we do have the markets issue. I'm gonna share a few comments on that a bit later, but kind of let's address the elephant in the room. Elon Musk buying Twitter. Is this gonna mean this is the last Twitter space ever? Is this gonna mean crypto is gonna have, I don't know, free flow? Does this mean everyone's going to lose 75% of their followers because 75% of all crypto followers seem to be some kind of fake bots? What does this mean for Bitcoin? What does this mean for Doge? I don't know. I don't know. Why don't you want to set the stage, Fabio, a bit, and then we kind of dig a bit deeper into the various issues? Maybe summarize. I mean, I assume most people know what's happening, but maybe summarize everything in like 30, 45 seconds, and then let's kind of address a couple of topics.
Yeah, I guess for everybody that hasn't noticed, Elon Musk bought Twitter for 44 billion, 43 billion and something, and he's planning on taking the company private. So he offered, I don't know, 30, 40% more than the actual price. There was like this back and forth, first Twitter declining the offer, Elon being pissed and going on a, I don't know, making a few tweets, sharing a few thoughts, and then finally Twitter agreeing to being bought by Elon Musk. Yeah, what does it mean? I guess we don't really know yet. So Doge pumped 30% instantly, of course, because the whole Doge community, I guess, thinks that Doge is going to be the new currency of Twitter, or I don't know, maybe Elon Musk has something planned for that. Then, of course, Twitter share prices, they went on hold, I think an hour or 2 hours ahead of the announcement. So everybody was already speculating that this might have happened, and then it was officially confirmed. For me, it is a really exciting thing happening, because like we have social media is dominated by Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Facebook, they have the biggest messaging app, they have the biggest one of the biggest social media apps, and Facebook is kind of boring. Like there was not real innovation when it comes to Instagram or WhatsApp. They hardly changed anything. And like Mark Zuckerberg is not the most beloved person. Like everybody or lots of people think he's just in the business of getting our data and selling it. And Elon represents something completely different, maybe a little bit of hope, maybe that finally we see some innovation when it comes to social media. And Twitter was criticized pretty hard during the last few months when it came to censorship and to canceling a president, and things like that. So I'm really excited, especially how fast Elon can bring change, because in his other company, he's famous for being a really fast mover and making drastic and fast changes. Let's see how he does that with Twitter, if it's even possible to do that. So I'm super excited to follow what is about to come. What do you think about him purchasing Twitter, good or bad?
I would love to first maybe address a couple of things other than before talking about the changes he would like to make. I think a couple of very interesting things. Again, obviously as a CEO myself, obviously, I mean, we have 100 and what I think at the moment 125 employees, not 100,000 employees, but still, obviously kind of managing my own money, us having a VC fund with Cake DeFi Ventures. You kind of look at certain things, right? You look at, okay, how does Elon do this, right? So how does one of the most successful people in history, the wealthiest person at the moment, at least officially, how does he do it? And so a couple of interesting observations I just want to throw in. So that Twitter deal for $44 billion, right? There's several ways how you would structure such a buyout. Obviously, the straightforward one is you would buy this in cash. Very unlikely in general. Just first of all, it doesn't make much sense to buy it straight out in cash. Then second, I think very few people actually would have that kind of cash. Even very few companies would have that kind of cash. And even if you were like, let's say a Berkshire or an Apple or someone who would actually have that kind of cash, you very likely would still not do it because you don't have to. You would use some kind of leveraged way to kind of do this. So if you do this in a leveraged way, which basically means you use other people's money, the question is, how do you do it? There's generally two ways to do it. The first one is you use part of your own money by basically borrowing against your current assets. Elon has been doing this constantly against his Tesla shares. So he puts up his Tesla shares and borrows against that. There's a certain limit that he has on his Tesla shares. I think it's 35% of the shares that he can loan against. Don't quote me on that exactly. There's some percentage, and that's very normal. You would have that kind of rule because you wouldn't want that, like a key kind of investor kind of risks his entire kind of stockpile to kind of be taken away in case of a liquidation event, right? So that is one form of things. And then obviously, and that was also with Elon, he was looking for, and that was a key thing as far as I understood from reading and talking to people who really kind of dug into this in detail. I think one of the key kind of considerations of the board was, does Elon actually have the funds to kind of do this buyout? There's this really more like a marketing kind of scheme more than anything else. Should the board actually take that offer seriously? And from everything that I heard and seen, this was really the key thing when then Elon could go out and say, look, we actually have the money. It is quite interesting that this is actually quite obscure. I think Reuters had a very interesting article that it's not as clear in where does all the money from, who are all the backers, how did Elon structure this on his end, but at least to the board, and I would assume if you're the board, when you take a good look there, it looked promising. I mean, again, also the deal, like one thing is actually agreeing. I don't know even if it's signed yet. Let's say it is signed. And then the second one is actually the closing, right? So there's always, and still, I mean, 60,000 things can happen in between. So the deal is far from done yet. But again, probably they shook on it. Maybe it is signed. Maybe there's some kind of intention. But until it's closed, that's when the deal is actually done. So obviously you would have other partners, and that was a long discussion. Does Elon have those? And it seems he does. The other option, how to actually finance that, and that was kind of expected that Elon would go this route, but he didn't, is let's say you buy those shares from Twitter at $44 billion, and then you instantly kind of talk to the banks, or you talk to PE funds that you loan against this equity, right? So you would have the 44 billion, and then you'd say, hey, you know what? I understand you're not going to give me 44 billion for the 44 billion. That's way too risky. But maybe you're going to give me half of that. So maybe you give me 22 billion or something. And I loaned that straight away against the shares. And most people were actually expecting Elon to kind of go this route. And for some very interesting reason, he didn't. he actually went that route in actually loaning even more against his own Tesla shares, which obviously then gets scrutinized massively if you're a Tesla shareholder, and obviously other Tesla shareholders have scrutinized that because there's a big risk in that if Tesla goes down. And I mean, there are possibilities for the stock market to drop over the next couple of months. And so people are a bit worried. People are going to calculate the exact strike prices. But let's say if Tesla would go down by 50%, Elon would get liquidated massively, which would actually cause an even further drop on the Tesla share price. Additionally, it seems, and that's like really insiders kind of sharing there, this is very anonymous, so people don't really want to reveal that because they don't want to kind of be the source named, that he pays over $1 billion in interest for loaning against his Tesla shares just for that deal. So quite interesting to kind of consider all those things. It seems that maybe, and that's kind of the possibility here, he just wanted to kind of get his funds together really quickly to kind of make that buyout. And then he's going to refinance afterwards. And that's just going to be interesting if you're a Tesla shareholder. And I think there's no secret that I am. I've been a Tesla shareholder for quite some time. And so obviously as a Tesla shareholder, this is just something you want to pay attention to. But I mean, I assume Elon knows what he's doing. He has been very smart about this. It's just super interesting to kind of see how those deals are being put together. The downside of what he's doing right now, if you're looking at it from an ROI perspective, so return on invest, obviously he's going to have a very, very high dollar amount that he's investing into this, meaning his return on invest is going to be relatively low. He would have a way higher return on invest if he would actually finance based on the equity in Twitter. Maybe he's going to refinance that and then he's going to convert that over. So that kind of highlights a bit also probably either two things. Either he just wanted to get the deal done really quickly and he didn't want to deal with, I mean, a lot of people are saying, look, Twitter is making pretty much no money. I think the revenue is $3.5 billion, which is like ridiculous in comparison to what like Facebook is making. I mentioned this a couple of times, how actually shitty of a company Twitter is in comparison to Meta or Facebook. And so it could be that he just like didn't want to do it because it was so difficult for him to actually kind of convince banks or PE funds to actually finance based on the Twitter equity. Could be. Or, and that's the other side of the story, that he really doesn't see this as a financial transaction, what he's sharing publicly, but he really sees this as a human kind of good, delivering something for humanity, right? Again, could be both. I just thought that was quite interesting for those of you that care about this stuff. Yeah, I always try to kind of bring in things where I feel you learn something if you're a complete beginner, but maybe also you're quite deep in the subject. And this could be something maybe that was relatively new to you. So quite interesting to kind of look at the deal, how this was structured. I took a bit of a deeper look, had a couple of calls there just because I wanted to understand it also for myself. If we would do merger and acquisitions, if we would buy another company, how would this work and so on. So that was just quite interesting. Yeah, with that, I would love to kind of take it to the next question that Fabio mentioned. How is this going to be? Is this going to be bullish? Is this going to be bearish? What does this mean for Twitter? And then I think in the next step, what does this mean for crypto? I think for that to kind of analyze, let's talk about some of the kind of changes or kind of the features or the updates that Elon floated around on social. Do you want to kind of dig into that a bit, Fabio?
Yeah. One of the most important or the craziest thing that he mentioned among the four, I think one is going against scams and spams. The other one is like features he has planned. Maybe this is an edit button. Maybe this is a subscription model, whatever. But he has some ideas. But the most interesting one I found is the authentication of all humans. And he mentions that, and like where I think it's a bit creepy of when Mark Zuckerberg would say that. I think it is a bit less creepy if Elon Musk says that, and I'm really interested in how they want to do that. Is this some form of KYC? Is this some form? Because what I think is missing in the general internet is this identity, this user identity, that you actually can verify that somebody is human. Some governments are trying to do it. Some other platforms are trying to do it. Some need to do it, like in the custodial world in cryptocurrencies, we need to verify users. So this development could be really, really interesting, and like I guess also a big potential, possibly. I'm not sure which ones are you looking forward to the most.
What would you say if he partners with WorldCoin? I don't know if you know that project from Sam Altman,
Oh, yes, yes.
who does like the iris scan, and then you get paid in WorldCoin if you do that scan. I don't know. I don't know if
Sounds
that there was
creepy.
no rumor. There was no rumor floating around there, but I just wanted to throw it in.
I guess the
Sounds.
partnership there is really important. If it would be Sam Altman from WorldCoin, I would be a bit worried, and I'm also would be a little bit concerned about my iris data or about my data in general. And yeah, but I don't know. It's
There's
interesting and
this
scary at the
there's
same
this
time.
meme. I'm sure you know this meme where there's Bill Gates on the left, and then and then Bill Gates, and there's like this billionaire. Don't trust this billionaire. He just wants to implant chips into you, right? And then you have on the other side, you have like Elon. He says, I actually do want to implant chips in you, right? And on the left side with Bill Gates, everyone is like, no, 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 like this is so deadly. And then with Elon, everyone's like, yeah, awesome, let's cheer. So I mean, there's a lot of prejudice actually in who proposes an idea.
Yeah, 100%. Elon gets a lot of benefit of the doubt, let's say, because people feel he has good intentions. It's like also like there was a good tweet I saw this morning. If somebody said, "Hey, you guys are all for decentralization and no central planning and this and that," and giving a company to Elon, making it private is like the most centralized thing ever. But the difference is we like the authority right now. So with Elon Musk, that's the main issue. If you
Yeah.
don't like the authority, it's a bad thing. If you like the authority, it's a good thing. So some people are also a little bit hypercritical, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing, and I actually want to address the, at least for me, the most. I mean, sure. Would I love to have an edit button? Sure. But can I use like, am I okay with Twitter without an edit button? Yes. Would I love to get rid of the bot problem? Like, sure. Have I been able to kind of use Twitter without the like with the bots? Yeah, it's just taking me like 10 or 20 blocks each day to kind of block all of them, and over time it just kind of decreases. But to me, right, and I want to ask your thought here a bit. The most interesting thing is actually his idea in kind of open sourcing the actual Twitter algo, right? So for those that don't really understand what that means, is obviously if you would use Twitter and you just go to the chronologic timeline, in theory, right, if there wouldn't be any bias in the algo, you personally just select who do you want to follow, and then whatever these people do in a chronologic timeline, you see all of their activity based on a chronological timeline. There's no bias, so there's no like you're going to see this person more or you're going to see this person less. You're just gonna see in a chronological timeline, this person liked this thing, this person retweeted this thing, this person tweeted that stuff, replied here, did that, and it's just in a chronologic timeline, right? So this would be a feed without any prejudice, no algo, no timeline function, and so on. So this doesn't actually need an algorithm because all it does is it just accumulates all the kind of activity that's happening. Now, what social media companies have realized is, even though this sounds really good because there's no bias, people don't like that function because people are not interested in all the kind of things that people do equally. They are interested in certain things more than others, right? And this makes a lot of sense. We all know this stuff, right? You don't care about every single like of a person. You don't care about every single reply. You don't even care about every person the same, right? It depends on like, and you actually don't even appreciate every single person does the same. Certain replies, certain tweets, like they trigger you way more or you like them way more than others. And so pretty much all the social media companies came out with algorithm in how certain accounts get pushed, posts, tweets, replies get pushed, and we all know this, right? And so there's this massive kind of discussion around how do these algos actually work? And then there's this entire kind of rumor mill around being shadow banned on Twitter, where if you don't kind of go with what's politically correct, or if you're not going to go with the current thing, whatever that is, your account is not getting pushed as much as others. For example, also in the suggested kind of accounts, or this is a big thing. Let's say you are interested in crypto. What are the accounts on the right side, the 3 accounts that you're being suggested to follow, right? So it's massive. Who are you, like, you can obviously, like, create very, very strong kind of tendencies and trends there. And so one of these big thing that Elon said is, He wants to bring Twitter, he wants to give Twitter back to humanity. So for him, it's all about open sourcing that. And so obviously a lot of people, and here you have to you really have to kind of make a little bit of a political statement that tends to be a bit more on the right, right? Obviously the far right, for them that's even more extreme, but anything that's a bit more on the right feels that Twitter has been kind of a bit against them over the past couple of years, especially over the past 2 years with COVID. If you're more identifying with the political left, you would say, look, but this is really all good for humanity because a lot of the people that identify a bit more either center right or far right, they have had ideologies, especially over the past years, that could have harmed people, that are they are more associated with Trump. They are more associated with things where obviously a lot of the left kind of says that are absolutely against what we all stand for, and people who identify more center right or on the far right would say, oh well, we're just not agreeing with the current thing, but actually our opinion is just as valid. And so people on the right, they tend to say now, hey, a lot of people on the left, they are super scared about this because now reality comes out, and we're going to see that these algorithms actually have been favoring a political left way more than anything else. And so that's going to be a very, very interesting one. So I don't know, Fabio, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think he's actually going to open source that? I mean, obviously, a lot of people are very critical of that, and they say, no, this is not going to happen because he's just going to fake that. He's going to own the company, and then he's going to move from being this benevolent dictator, and he does what all dictators do at some point. They become like complete insane with power, and they don't manage the responsibility with that power, and they become malicious dictators. And so that's what a lot of people obviously then kind of fear. Do you think he's going to open source that? What do you think is going to get revealed out of that? I think, to be honest, from all the things that Elon shared that he's wanting to do, like all the subscriptions and I don't know, blue ticks and yellow ticks and orange ticks and I don't know what, all the check marks, I think open sourcing of the algo puts the most pressure on all the social media platforms if it actually turns out the way we all hope it would turn out, because this is actually then the true kind of being a platform and not a publisher anymore. Because all these social media companies, they kind of hide themselves behind a special law in the US where they're like, oh, we're just a platform. Like, we're not responsible for what people post on our platform. How do you see this play out?
I think Elon really likes attention. And he got it. He's like all over the media. Everybody's talking about this, and all eyes are on him. He made some big promises. He said he's going to open source the algo, and I think he will. What comes out of this, if there is maybe a bias in that algorithm right now, like probably through the political left, I'm not 100% sure what would come out of this, or if they have like a whole department that does this manually or whatever. I think Elon will have some transparency on this, and it's probably going to be good competition for other social media platforms, especially if like there is this possibility he open sources this algo, and people from all over the world, like Elon has such a huge fan base and people that love him and cherish him like a god. And there will be so many people that will jump on this open source algorithm and try to, review it, to add on to it. There will be a huge discussion about how should this algorithm be structured, what is a good algorithm and what isn't. And I think this could potentially be a very, very good thing. Of course, there is some chance that this is all just PR and nothing will happen out of it. But I try to be optimistic here. And good competition for social media, because what innovation came out of social media or Facebook or anything since, I don't know, 2012? Nothing really happened. Like on WhatsApp, I still don't even have the opportunity to react to a message. Everything is super clunky as it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. There was no true innovation. And I hope that Elon buying Twitter puts a little bit of competition, or just some innovation will come out of the social media space again. That's at least my hope. So in general, I'm positively
cool. Yeah, I agree.
Looking forward to it.
I 100% agree. I think that's a really fair analysis. one story I want to share that is my biggest fear. And if you're German speaking, there's a very high chance that you actually know that book. If you're not German speaking, even though that book exists in English, it's not as popular in the English language. The book is called Quality Land. It's written by a German author. If you can listen to the audiobook version, I think it's fantastic. And it talks about it talks about a world in the next, whatever, 20, 30, 40 years. And it's a hilarious book. It kind of mocks fun of most things in life. And it talks about algorithms. And it's about this kind of main character. It's this hilarious story that is basically, it's being sent a dildo in the shape of a dolphin. And that store that sent him that dildo in the shape of a dolphin says, based on all the algorithms that's out there, that is exactly what he wants. And he says, no, I don't want to have a dildo in the shape of a dolphin. Who cares about this dildo in shape of a dolphin? I don't want it. I want to return it. And that store doesn't let him return it. And so the entire, at least there's a second story in that book, is a second part in like a second version in the book now as well, as like a part 2. But in part 1, the entire book is about him and this quest to return it. And I'm not gonna spoil how that kind of story goes, but what you're going to realize really, really quickly, and that is my biggest fear now if I translate that to Twitter, is my biggest fear is that we see the algo, everything is open source, but we don't know what it actually does. We don't understand how it actually works at the end. We don't understand the consequences. And then what's going to happen is the following. If you belong to the political left, you feel completely confirmed that this is, you see, I told you guys, you're just being paranoid. You're kind of like, we were right, you were wrong. If you belong to the political right, you're gonna try to find like the consequence. You're gonna try to simulate. You're gonna try to walk it our way through to kind of find that point where you're like, you see, you were completely wrong. Completely wrong. We were right. We did get blocked. And the example that actually Elon many times gave himself was, imagine we have this massive complicated AI and we give it this one task, and this one task is to kind of protect humans, right? And then this AI just kind of looks at it and kind of analyzes it and becomes better and self-improves and self-improves. And at some point it realizes the thing in order to protect humans is, well, let's put like every human onto a bed, tie that person up, force feed it with like only like super healthy IV fluids to kind of conquer any kind of cancer, conquer any kind of a heart disease. Basically, don't let that person do anything so there's no accidents and so on. So at the end, we gave it this really great target, which was basically protect humans. And then it just goes into actually completely taking any kind of freedom away, right? And so Elon many times kind of mentioned when asked about this question, he said, actually, probably most AIs, they should be programmed around maximizing freedoms for people. And then he also then kind of had this thought experiment where he says, well, maybe then the AI does nothing else than present you 1,000 options. And if you just want to have like more milk, like it's going to sit in front of you for 10 hours and present to you all the milk options that are out there. And 10 hours later, you finally get to decide which kind of milk you want. So he says it's very, very difficult sometimes with these algos. The more complex they are, the more kind of variables they're in there, right? To kind of think it through what happens. And I think of that so many times that this is actually my biggest fear. So my biggest fear is actually that we're going to look at that and both political sides are completely going to feel like right in their beliefs. And it's just going to make it even worse because at the moment, I mean, it doesn't matter what subject you throw in into kind of discussion, you suddenly have this polarizing topics. And that's just a big, big, big fear that I have because, again, I'm not a engineer in a social media company, but from everything that I understand, talking to engineers at Cake and I have friends who work in social media companies, they're like, dude, like, it's not like this algo is like 60 lines. This thing is like terabytes and terabytes of data that's just so complicated that no one understands this thing. So sure, there can be a political bias in there. Like when like no one would, like at least people that I spoke to, no one wanted to deny that, but they're like, good luck trying to understand that. Like you have to simulate this thing in the real world, right? And that's what we're doing right now. And then you actually see the consequences. And yeah, so I always think of that dolphin dildo in quality land when I think of algorithms and the complexity of the consequences there. Yeah, I just want to throw that in there. I don't know, Fabio, if you want to add anything there, because otherwise I would just throw in that question. What do you think is this going to mean for Bitcoin? What's this going to mean for Doge?
Yeah, I was asking myself the same question. What does it mean for Bitcoin? What does it mean for Doge? Right now, Bitcoin is integrated a little bit into Twitter, as are NFTs. I think Bitcoin, like Elon is positive for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge. He said that multiple times. Maybe he likes Doge the most out of these three. And like, I can imagine a scenario, very likely, I would probably give it a 60% probability, at least more than half, that he will expand payments on Twitter and include Doge. Like I would give this a fairly high chance of actually happening. So yeah, Doge pumped 30%. Is it going to stay up? Is it going to perform better if Elon integrates it onto Twitter? Is somebody going to use it? What happens to NFTs on Twitter? Because Elon don't really likes them. He posted a few funny memes. He didn't actually voice an opinion. Yeah, I guess many questions. But I guess overall it's positive. Also, maybe even for the broader markets, it's hard to say if markets pumped Bitcoin and Doge pumped because Elon bought Twitter and there is some excitement, or if they just bottomed out for a short period of time or had a short breather. But I could imagine that the two events are slightly connected.
I agree. I mean, I actually don't have much of an opinion on how this is going to affect Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Doge. I think personally, probably Elon's personal position is I mean, he said, obviously, I mean, what we know is Tesla has a Bitcoin position in the latest Q1 filings. Tesla still held that position. They hadn't sold after they had done this small test sale last year, but after that, it seems they didn't touch that position. As far as we know, none of his other companies have Ethereum or Doge on the balance sheet, but he has confirmed several times that he personally owns Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge. I could believe that his personal largest crypto position is actually Doge. I could. I mean, I don't know, right? This is pure speculation. I have zero evidence for that. I do believe, as far from everything that I kind of read about Elon, I said this several times, I'd only met him once at a South by Southwest event. I have not had any kind of interaction with him other than a 5-second kind of interaction. That's it. So I know nothing more than you do probably, but from everything that I kind of got to read about him and see about him, he seems to be someone who loves betting on himself. So he has done that super successfully. And so I could imagine that he says, look, I mean, Bitcoin is probably has the lowest amount of downside as any kind of cryptocurrency, and I would agree with that 100%. But he's probably going to say, in Bitcoin, I have the hardest to actually have a positive impact in it because it is so decentralized, right? So it's very, very difficult for me, even if I would invest $10 billion, to actually have a significant kind of possibility to drive that cryptocurrency up. So I do think that for him, the way he is, like being a meme lord and just loving that stuff, and that he just says, look, which of the cryptocurrencies is one that kind of is aligned with how I feel about life in general? Which one is at a size where I can actually deposit a couple of $1 billion, but then it's not that large that I actually don't have an impact. And so I do think that his Doge position is the largest in his personal portfolio. And he just likes to kind of, obviously, just like all his other kind of assets, obviously he wants to have financial returns on that. So I could see that he has some kind of interaction with Doge and Twitter. Wouldn't surprise me. I also agree with you. I think yes, it was quite interesting to see that the entire market kind of went down. Then suddenly the Twitter buyout got announced. Suddenly the market started turning around. And at the moment, crypto is really following the general markets. It could also be, I mean, we have a really, really key week ahead of us with earnings. Many of the large tech companies kind of have to report earnings this week. Yesterday it started. There were relatively good earnings yesterday. So in comparison to past week, especially with Netflix, which was disastrous. Only Tesla last week that reported earnings on 4:20 and then at 4:20 p.m. Yeah, other than that, all the other companies were pretty abysmal. And so this week it looks a lot better. So this could also be a bit of the thing. One thing I want to give you on the markets, nothing has really changed. I think the inflation fears, kind of interest rate hike fears, I think we're peaking there. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see inflation kind of peaking in May, kind of not going up as dramatically anymore, seeing a 0.5% raise in May and people not really being shook. So, yeah, I do think that maybe other factors are going to come in again. And yeah, at the moment, definitely an environment where I would just be diversified. Look for cash flow, look for solid companies, look for solid cryptocurrencies. Yeah. And again, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of technical analysis. I always think this is more astrology than anything else. But if you believe in this stuff, then people are going to highlight that at the moment it looks really bearish because we have the 20 and the 50 moving average in Bitcoin trending down. And I think if those two trend down, it's like, I don't know, Aquarius kissing whatever the fish, and that means we're gonna see some nightmare happening. I don't know, but in the last two times this happened, yeah, we saw Bitcoin or the market kind of dipping down dramatically. So let's hope Aquarius is not kissing the fish and we see some new astrological kind of outcome. But yeah, I think the real world is gonna define that, not some charts. Yeah, I don't know how you see this. I think you sent me this screenshot from this Twitter poll where I think 90% or something were kind of really scared right now and saw a bear market coming up. I don't know if you want to, if you have any kind of comments or thoughts on that.
Yeah, in general, the community seems to be more bearish than bullish. So Benjamin Cohen, he has had a big survey with around 60,000 participants, where 70% were said Bitcoin is in a bear market currently, not in a bull market, but in a bear market. And if you look at other polls or just the general sentiment on social media, there seems to be more people bearish than bullish currently. Or if this is going to change, hard to say. Most of the time you can say, okay, a majority in the market is mostly they're wrong. So maybe that a large majority is bearish is actually bullish. But yeah, not 100% sure. If you look at some other metrics like Bitcoin Google searches or Coinbase app downloads, everything seems to be a little disappointing right now. At least there is no real retail coming in, not a lot of new people, not a lot of volume. Everything is just a little bit boring right now. Yeah.
Definitely. I think at the moment, there's a lot of professional kind of traders that are trading any kind of market. I think they're market agnostic. They don't care if they're trading bushels, they're trading oil, they're trading futures of S&P 500, or if they're trading Bitcoin or Ethereum, it doesn't matter to them as long as they can trade something that's volatile. And I think so that's why you have this massive correlation at the moment between various assets. So yeah, I think nothing has really changed there. Yeah, these are a bit my thoughts here. I don't know if any questions or anything else or anything you want to add here from your side. But I think I shared pretty much everything that I wanted to share. I don't know if there's anything else.
We kind of had a short back and forth, Julian and me, and we said, hey, we might need to keep this one a little bit shorter because both of us have appointments right after the spaces. So I guess this is maybe a good opportunity to round it up. I think we have addressed the most important points, and really excited for next week's Twitter space to maybe reflect a little bit on this one and the first week of Elon owning Twitter. So we do this on a weekly basis every Tuesday. This is around 18:30 Singapore time, midday time in Europe. This is also going to be available on Spotify and on YouTube on Apple Podcast.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks so much, Fabio. Yeah. If you are not a customer yet, go to cakedefi.com If you are looking for a really, really awesome employer, go to cakedefi.com/jobs. I think we have 33 job openings. So in any kind of field. With that, have a good Tuesday. Stay safe. Be healthy. Obviously, good fortune, good wealth, and fingers crossed that Elon is doing the right thing in all of that. With that, all the best. Talk to you next week. Love you all. All the best. Bye-bye.